Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Friday, May 9th, third hour on Friday can only mean one thing. What just happened? As we look back at the insanity and some of the good things of the week, all three returning champs are on the show. Alex Berg is back, creative director and journalist, telling stories from in front of behind the camera, written for NBC News, Daily Beast, focus a great deal on the LGBTQ issues, and guest host on this very channel. Hello, Alex. Nice to see you.
Hello. Great to see everybody.
Lizz Winstead's back, comedian, co-creator of The Daily Show, activist, creator of Abortion Access Front, and host. Her podcast is Feminist Buzzkill Live. Hello, Liz. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Exactly. And look who's also back. Keith Price is here. Comedian, actor, podcaster, talk show host, and so much more. Good to see you, Keith.
Hello, Habibi. How are you, darling?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. So Keith is back. Everyone ready to go. We got a new pope.
Hi, everybody.
Cardinal Robert Provost from Chicago. And Colbert already did some really good jokes with like the prayers. And he chose the name Pope Leo the 14th, because we're 13 before Chicago White Sox fan. Let me just ask you, if you were going to be Pope, what name would you pick? And I know women can't be Pope yet. That's going to change. So, I mean, Alex, what do you think of Pope Leo? I mean, it's named after a social justice warrior in a way, it really is. But what name would you give yourself? Or what name do you think would be a cool Pope name?
I would be the gay Pope.
The gay Pope?
Yeah, I would just, I'm a Jew, I'm a woman, I'm queer, I'm already bucking tradition. Why not just lean into it and just be the gay Pope?
Not Pope Gay? Just
or
the gay
I could be Pope Gay. You could call me Pope Gay. I'm cool with that too.
Pope Gay the first.
Exactly.
I like it.
All right, Liz, what about you? I mean, I'm sure you've dreamed of being a pope, but most of your life.
Well, I was brought up Catholic and went to Catholic school. So I would be Pope Convicticus Pedophiliist.
Ah, Convictus Pedophilius. That wouldn't be the first.
No. So I would just be concentrating on convicting the pedophiles. So I would say be that.
And Keith, what about you, my friend?
Well, because my need for the theatrics, I'm gonna go with Pope Roxy the first.
Oh,
so
Pope
that I
Roxy?
can always sing Roxy Hart whenever I walk into the Pope space, because the name on everybody's lips will be Roxy. See?
So you've
see what I'm
you
saying?
not only have a name, you have a show, you have a song involved, you have music.
Yeah, because I'm a big homosexual, Dean.
That's okay. That's why you have the music. Very good.
Let me live my stereotype, please.
And also, if I was the Pope, I would change it to the Holy See You Next Tuesday.
Oh, I love that.
Next Tuesday.
That's beautiful.
a good one.
That's very good. By the way, can you,
Pope
you guys
jokes,
know?
they're coming, people.
Oh, yeah.
Here
I
they
like
come.
it. That's why we're here. Do you guys know what the most common Pope name is?
John Paul.
John, actually. It's just John. And then the next one is Gregory. Do you know there were 3 popes named Felix?
And the next one is dead.
No, that's different. That's different. But there were 3 popes named Felix and 3 named Sylvester, which is very, very cat.
Ooh.
It's very. I was looking at
Do you want to
realize
reconsider?
Sylvester was an option. I
Felix.
would reconsider Sylvester as an option.
Pope
Come
Sylvester.
on. But I'd make sure, but all of my gowns and everything are going to be all sparkly and fabulous like the real Sylvester.
Yes.
That's very interesting. There's also Pope Eugene, which sounds like the nerdiest Pope ever. But there were like 3 Eugenes who were like pencil protectors in the gowns and stuff like that. So it was interesting to see the different names. Like through the names, there were names not like Convictius Pedophilius, but like Sixtus and that. I'm like, what? I thought that was like a name out of a movie. There was Saxon from White Lotus. No, there wasn't a Saxon, but that was just White Lotus. So look, all right. So what do you think? Liz, you went to Catholic school. We'll start with you. There's a Pope from America. A lot of people are making a big deal about it. What do you think?
I am not on Team Vatican, Pope, Catholic, anything.
Right.
So what I would say is look no further than Laura Loomer. Look, people do not follow the Pope they don't want a moral leader, right? If that were the case, Catholics internationally and in America would have rethought the way they were going to be stewards of the environment, would have had compassion for LGBTQ people. They still would have hated abortion, because even that last good Pope, the good Pope, hated abortion, called us murderers, called us hitmen, all the other bullshit. But it's like, so I don't even think it matters anymore, because the leadership, if the Pope presents any morality, it does not sway these white supremacist Catholics in any way, shape, or form. They're just big mad about caring. It's literally like, I love everyone. Fuck that guy, he's a Marxist. Like, what?
Well, Laura
Yeah.
Loomer is a piece of garbage, but there were other influencers, MAGA world, that were very upset because the Pope dares to advocate the teachings of Jesus while they want the gospel of Trump. That's their thing. Like, it's not the level of cruelty that MAGA embraces is a threat to all of us. Like, it really is. Like, their glorification of cruelty transcends the Pope or migrants. It's just viciousness. So, Alex, I mean, what do you make of the MAGA world? I like that the MAGA world is upset. I like that this Pope, he retweeted criticism of Trump with migrants and JD Vance who became a Catholic just a few years ago, saying like, here's the ranking of how you're supposed to care about people in terms of Catholicism. And the Cardinal's like, that's just wrong. We don't do that. That's not, like there's no book of hierarchy in the gospel,
Yeah.
so.
JD Vance being an adult convert to Catholicism, I think speaks to the moment where MAGA will pick and choose whatever religious teaching they want and completely twist it to their own means. And, we all know that they don't follow any actual moral teaching to love thy neighbor or to support refugees or anything of that nature. So I feel like they just pick and choose what they want of religion to justify the awful things that they're doing. And then on top of that, I feel like this Pope can kind of be a foil for them, so that he can be a symbol of all of these causes, which really kind of my read on him is he's not actually like a progressive Pope. Like, maybe he's just slightly a dash moving the needle ever so tinily forward compared to some of his predecessors, or at least he's following somewhat in Francis's footsteps. But I think it just speaks to their hunger and desire to need a foil and to always want to frame things through this lens of US political red versus blue. And because I feel like his record isn't actually that great. And I feel like actually, Francis's legacy is that he sort of threaded this needle where he went just far enough on some issues for people. If you were left leaning, you could kind of glean that maybe he was an ally on these issues. But also, I think if you were more to the right, he really like towed it up to the line, which I also find it, so interesting when we're thinking about what his legacy is versus this new guy. As a Philadelphian, however, the new Pope went to Villanova. And actually that was like a shocking element to me. There's something that just feels so, I don't know, unpope-like to go to Nova. You know what I mean? So
and I just want to throw in too that being the most progressive Pope is like being the smartest MAGA cabinet member. Like,
there you go.
Has no weight at all. But also the thing that Catholics and people who are like social justice Catholics, I mean, the thing that's always concerning to me is, and it happened with Francis because he was the progressive Pope too, is these MAGA Catholics who are just trash, when they see that Pope, evangelical churches and white and Christian nationalism sees this as an opportunity to take those people into their flock so that they can have the Christian beliefs they want, not the Christian beliefs of Christ.
Well, nothing. Keith, what about you, my friend?
You're asking probably the least of the religious practicing anythings. I mean, I grew up Baptist, so this whole Catholic stuff to me is just extra pageantry, which you would think would appeal to me from the gay side because, like, ooh, colors. But the thing for me is that, again, I just look at all of this as just a bunch of men who have decided that they are somewhat holier than, greater than, or people are putting them or exalting them to this level to where we are spending this much time worrying about a man who's 72 years old, who's probably going to have this job for about 10 years at the most.
Well, he's 69, but yes, go ahead.
Am I cutting out?
No, I'm saying he's 69
but
yeast old.
he's
Dean just likes to say 69
I just keep saying it over and over again to you. I'm going to keep saying it every 30 seconds. I just want people to know his age.
But I mean,
he's like one of the younger popes.
I feel like, to me, he's one of the younger popes. But
no,
I mean,
he is. That's
I feel
the
like,
thing that, go ahead.
But this, to me, I don't see what ground this is going to shake for regular people that are going through the shit of the day. I mean, I get it that, if you're Catholic, this means a lot, or you've invested a
You're
lot of your
practicing
life
that.
in believing in all of this
Right.
and how this is supposed to affect your lives. But when you realize that you're putting all this energy in some man who a bunch of other men have decided that he's the more holiest man of whatever, and that we're supposed to listen and follow, like, I just don't get that. I don't get it. It's like I barely listened to the minister growing up. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I can only imagine, how much faith you got to put in all of this stuff to keep listening. And my philosophy has always just been, don't be a douchebag to people. Try to be nice. Take care of the people that, if you got something you can help people, help them. If you can't, do your best to not get in the way of those people's progress. That's all you got to do.
That's the gospel of
All the
Keith.
other shit, everything else
Gospel
is
of
just
Keith. Very
like
nice.
fluff,
Well, and I
So,
just, I'm sorry, Keith.
Okay,
yay,
Liz.
we have a pope. Oh,
So
go ahead,
I
honey.
just want to say other thing that happened this week before they named this pope. I don't know if you saw the story, but the Washington State has passed a law that said that priests, if there is someone who's in a confessional and they confess to sexually abusing a child, the priest has an obligation legally by the state of Washington to report them to the authorities.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, the Catholic Church issued an edict that said any priest in Washington State that reports a person who confessed will be excommunicated from the church.
Wow.
So when we're talking
Wow.
about why I can't celebrate so hard, it's reasons like that. It's
Sure,
reasons
I
like that.
understand. And, my late mom was very devout Catholic. So I wonder if she'd be excited that he's from America, or to her it would be lesser because she likes the exotic nature of the Pope coming from another country. Like if it's the Pope who grew up down
We
the
want our
street, you're
popes to
like,
be
it's
sexy.
Leo from down the street is Pope now. Like it's like Pope Vito. There's like Pope Giuseppe down the. So I wonder how she would come out of it. I'm chatting with Alex Berg, Lizz Winstead, and Keith Price. I don't know. My Pope name would be Pope Dino. I think I was going with that one. Like kind of straddles the world. Dino, and there's been no Pope named Dino before that, or Pope. What are you looking at? I mean, being from Jersey, Pope, what are you looking at?
Pope, forget
Usually,
about
here
it.
comes Pope, forget about it. Pope Tony Soprano. So let's talk about. So this is just silliness. There's no substance to this next topic. This is completely just to mock and belittle Donald Trump as much as possible. So he posts online, rebuild and open Alcatraz, all caps, of course, because it has to be. And on social, on 6 p.m. on Sunday, for too long, America's been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society, who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering. By the way, as I read this, I realize he didn't write it. And when we were more of a serious nation in times past, because it's actually grammatically correct with commas that are right. It's like when we were a more serious nation, comma, in times past, comma, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals, comma, and keep them far away from anyone. He doesn't use commas like this, right? So someone else wrote this, but
did he write out comma?
He put that was so funny, like comma. But what I love is that people said they found out that on the South Florida PBS station, they aired a 1979 classic, Escape from Alcatraz, and Trump is back home in Mar-a-Lago. But I'm like, he doesn't watch PBS. He's defunding PBS. So like, I don't know, but he could have watched it. So what do you think? I mean, to me, like, next he's going to call for like reopening Shawshank Prison in Maine. He's like, there was this prison.
Willowbrook.
Let's
open up Willowbrook.
They could do accountants.
Willowbrook.
Learn accounting. It's great. It's a great prison. You get a lot of skills when you leave, and Morgan Freeman's there. So, so what do you think, Alex? I mean, it's silly. Like with the John Voight thing with the tariffs, that was almost real. But again, this is the kind of like whimsical thing where they do 3 segments a day on cable news, and it just passes quickly because there was nothing here. This was just bullshit,
Yeah.
But Alex, I mean, I think forget the substance. Just what's your reaction to this idiot doing this stuff?
I mean, that's my reaction, is that this idiot is sitting there watching this being like, this seems like a good idea. It's just so absurd. And then I remember like I went on a tour of Alcatraz when I was like 11 years old, and I'm like, Alcatraz is logistically seems difficult to get to. Why are we doing this? We have a massive prison industrial complex in this country. Like, just absolute goofy, silly clown stuff.
Liz, I had Andy Borowitz on yesterday, who was talking about but the movie's called Escape from Alcatraz. The guy actually escaped.
Yes.
Like, why would you, it's showing the prison's not good. Like, you want a prison where people, so Andy made a great point, made me laugh a lot. And then Andy talked about how now Trump wants to open the Willy Wonka factory again because he watched Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory.
I mean, maybe you could take all these small businesses and just say, hey, can you house, here's how you stay open. You'll house 2 or 3 people I deem criminals. Stop making strollers and just start being a prison. But honestly, the thing about two things about Alcatraz. One, Alcatraz did not have a sewer system. All of the raw sewage from Alcatraz went into the San Francisco Bay.
Wow.
A, something to know.
That is something
And
to know.
B, somebody did an economical study and it said it would be cheaper to house people at Trump Tower than it would.
Which I like
at
that.
Alcatraz.
I'm all for that.
Which, look, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's the cognitive problems combined with sociopathy and pure evil are just, it's just rolling along. We're just rolling along.
Well,
what do you think, Keith?
And add to that unlimited power.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
And add to that unlimited power. What my whole philosophy is, I think we should really think about refurbishing Alcatraz and make it really nice, and then put his ass there and let him rot his rest of his life there. Sad about the sewage thing, but maybe we can work that out in the refurbishing.
He just has a diaper anyway. You don't need it.
Oh, that's right. But we still got to, but you want to leave him on an island of dirty diapers.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I would love to leave
Like
him on an island
landfill.
in his own mess.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Make
That
Alcatraz great again. Is that a
so,
hat
I mean,
yet?
as far as the
Sure.
refurbishing it goes,
What about
we
Melania?
could do it.
Well,
She doesn't care.
Does she have to go?
She needs to go back to. She has to go back to the home office of her Red Sparrow energy, because that's what I'm going to hold on to that. She's a Red Sparrow, honey.
100%.
There's no way in the contract that it says if he goes to prison, she has to go to prison, because
Oh,
whatever
she's not
contract they
going.
have, whenever, remember she went to the Pope thing with him, and that must have been on turn to page 7, paragraph 3. If the Pope dies, you have to attend with me. Like, okay, I go with you now.
Well, I mean, that's a big state event,
She's nowhere to be found, which I understand completely. Why would you want to be around this guy? That is, everything about him is transactional, including that relationship. There's no doubt that's transactional to me.
Well, babe, honey, the thing is her job is done. Do you understand?
She gave baby.
Her job is done. She has attached herself to this person that has gotten her into the seat of power, to where they're thinking about wanting back channels to Russia. She's there to translate all these different Slavic languages. This moron somehow managing to get back into the White House, with all of the things that they've now allotted him. We now know that he's basically given keys to the damn country to fucking Putin. So her job is done.
Right.
She doesn't have to do anything else. So this is basically bonus time for her. If she, you know what I mean? Like, this is the clause she had to write into. If I get an extra 4 years, you're going to have to pay me this much more money for me to be showing up. And I'm only going to do the big events. Don't be asking me to be holding your hand and touching you. We're not doing none of that. We already got the kid. He ain't getting into Harvard, so we're good to go. You know what I'm saying?
And her parents got to be citizens,
That's
right?
her job. That's why you can't find her.
Citizens. So it was a win-win overall.
Exactly.
Alex Berg, Lizz Winstead,
Exactly.
and Keith Price. So let's talk about the Trump. What was making a lot of press yesterday, and then the Pope being chosen eclipsed all of it, was Trump's so-called trade deal with the UK. And, as I pointed out, and because corporate media just sucks. Corporate media treating him yesterday like he's a hero. This is the guy who started the fire, literally, with a tariff war, and then peed on the side of the fire, just a teeny bit. And they're like, unbelievable. It's not a trade deal. Even a few, Eric Erickson, who I don't like at all, on the right even noted that. I noted it in the Substack. It is the framework. It is the concepts of a plan. Remember Trump during the debate? That's all it is. They may, as the New York Times, at one of the few that reported it well, this may never turn into a trade deal because there's so much to be hammered out. But it's kind of remarkable the way our corporate media goes crazy. But what I found was really concerning is that Trump made it clear that 10% tariff on every country is going to stay no matter what. That's going to be an increase of, probably, depending how much the companies can eat, 5-10% on all our goods going forward on imports. And we already have inflation. I don't know how it's going to work out. So, Alex, what do you think of the media going crazy yesterday? It was like tumble salts. He posts at 6 a.m. So for the hours leading in every morning show, there's a big deal with the UK. Unbelievable. They get the king on the phone. What do you think about this? And the deal is bullshit. And the deal favors the UK, but we don't even know ultimately because we have nothing in writing, nothing, zero in writing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the corporate media falls into the trap every single time, and that all of the tariff stories about the perceived negotiation of, slamming these countries with tariffs and then walking it back and making a deal, it's all sort of this orchestration to make it seem as though Trump is making these deals when really he created the problem in the first place and then is walking it back. So it is, I don't even want to say that it's remarkable to see the corporate media continue to frame and report stuff in this way, because this is not the aberration. This is how they like to report things. And it's just a shame because it is, again, such a disservice for, I think, people who just catch their news via headlines, or, they're looking for the framing of this moment via the corporate media. And maybe they'll get the sense, if they're not critically thinking, that Trump is somehow making some kind of deal, as if this wasn't the intended framing from the jump, that he knows that he's creating the problem and then, trying to make himself seem like he's providing this solution when he's not in any way. Yeah. And it is so unfortunate to see the corporate media in this moment just fall for it every single time, to the point where I think they just have an appetite to kind of pump out the same cycle over and over again.
Well, also for the corporate media and for Trump both, the stupidity and the lack of history to understand how the UK suffered from Brexit, and to think that some garbage deal that was going to harm them even further with the US was going to be signed off on is ludicrous. They fool me once, they're just like so stung, and they're like, no way. Sorry, and vocal about it, because not only do they have to be vocal about it to their own people, they have to say to the world, like, we're in the business of trading with our allies and with people, and they need to get back to, those relationships in and of itself with the EU. That's going to be the more important relationship to focus on than this,
this
amoral clown.
Right. By the way, Liz, we had on Representative Ilhan Omar, who's your friend from Minnesota.
My dear, yeah.
And talked about the need to make Canada a priority for states like Minnesota and Vermont and others. That's a huge trading partner, and Trump has caused grave problems there. He has the Prime Minister of Canada over. There's no deals because they're not going to roll over. And again, this was not a trade deal. It is a framework of a potential deal, which has weird things in, like Rolls-Royce gets an exemption and they can sell their cars in America with zero tariffs. And they asked Trump why. He goes, it's a great car. Like he said, you can make a commercial of that. Literally said that. And the guy said, and again, this makes no sense, and why corporate media doesn't cover it. Trump said we put 25% tariff on steel and aluminum to protect those industries in America, protect jobs, right? Yesterday, he said to the UK, no more 25% tariff on steel and aluminum in America, meaning you could just dump your steel and aluminum here with no tariffs, and no one goes, but you said we needed that to protect jobs. Now we don't need it to protect jobs anymore. I don't know why corporate media is this bad at the stuff that I just read it. And I read it in the BBC, and the BBC had bullet points, and US media was like all over the place. At least BBC gave me bullet points about exactly what was agreed to, even though it's not in writing yet. And I'm like, why didn't you ask this, you shitty media reporters there who don't want to lose access? So, Keith, what is your take about, it's not a trade deal, it's bullshit, and we have to live through this like we're going to get a great healthcare plan in 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. If this deal never happens, really, the media will never cover it the way they covered yesterday. It'll just be disappear.
Well,
like, oh, it never happened. So what?
But again, here we are. We're watching, the great businessman do his business. The great businessman that everybody said he's a great business. Like, if people had critical thinking from the very fucking beginning of all of this process, this man would not even be an issue for us as a country. If America was using critical thinking, because again, it doesn't take much to figure out the guy with 6,000, bankruptcies and all of this bad marriage and all of these horrible things going on in his past would not necessarily make a president when we are using these certain ideals that we would like in our leaders. So like critical thinking would have kept him out of the race from the fucking very beginning. But since we don't have that, to continue on to watch this trade foolishness and watch, countries turning their back on us, watching him just ruin all these relationships that we've spent decades trying to maintain. And within an instance of 100 days, he's ruined all of that. And no one seems to, the Supreme Court has given him free reign to do whatever he fucking wants to do. We have a country that, we've got the Senate that has all of these people that they've, all of the cabinet posts that they've given to these folks by voting them in, knowing full well none of them are qualified to do anything, but yet they're still doing it. And we are powerless as a group to not yank these fucking people by their fucking throats and handle the business that needs to be handled. Because see, that's where we're at now. I don't, we are at a point now where we cannot continue to let the stupidity keep running the headlines. You can't let the stupidity run the business of the country, because we're going to end up with nothing. And that's going to be all of us. All of these farmers and all these people sitting around, crying, talking about their votes for Trump, and they feel bad about this. Well, you know what? Now you fucked it for everybody. So now we're going to have to collectively stop, but we're going to have to collectively stop letting all this stuff continue on that we all know from the books that we've read in economy and the things that we know from science. And we have to start just saying, this just has to stop. And, the Supreme Court, I don't know how you're going to fix that. But, the Senate and the House, everything is all a jumble. But it's people need to start knowing that this is the stuff that needs to be in their brains when they walk into the next polling thing. And we need to keep hammering that in so that we can override whatever numbers we have to override, the Starlink thing that's fucking all the numbers up in the beginning. Because that's another story for another
That's a whole different story. All right. So let's take a break. I want to come back and talk about something that deals with Trump's cruelty. And we have it with the migrants, but this week the Supreme Court allowed the transgender ban in the military to go in effect. But it's even worse than a ban. It's not forward-looking. It's really literally ejecting people from the military. Patriotic transgender Americans who are serving our nation are now get 30 days to self-deport, according to Pete Hegseth, the drunk, incompetent piece of garbage, or they're going to be thrown out unceremoniously. So when we come back, let's take a break and talk about that. And also Joe Biden on The View and making the rounds on BBC. He's more in the media now than when he was president. It's kind of remarkable. So I'll be right back after this quick break. And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're continuing what just happened with Alex Berg, Lizz Winstead, and Keith Price. So I want to go to Alex, to you first, and of course Keith and then Liz on this. This is really heartbreaking to me. There are transgender Americans, thousands of them. We don't know the exact number. I've seen estimates from 1,000 to 5,000 to 8,000, 10,000. But what we know, there are transgender Americans who've been permitted to serve openly in our military since 2016. Some are officers. Some are, the enlisted people in our military. They are patriots. They're doing more than most Americans will ever do, because overwhelmingly Americans don't volunteer to serve in our military. And now did Trump in his first term signed a ban on forward looking. This new one, this administration is much more cruel, and it bans anyone except for a teeny exemption that you're out. Even if you've been serving great since 2016, you've done everything asked for, you've moved up the ranks, you're serving our nation. And now Pete Hegseth just said yesterday that service members will have between 30 and 60 days to leave voluntarily or be forced out. These people have done nothing wrong. They've served our nation, and they're going to be thrown out. And to me, this is one of the cruelest things. People who wanted to serve our nation for the best of reasons, and you have a scumbag like Trump who's a coward and a draft dodger, and Pete Hegseth, an incompetent, drunk, woman abuser with Christian nationalist tattoos. And that guy is now saying, you got to leave. So Alex, as someone who's an activist in the community and written a lot, what is your take on this?
Yeah, this is an issue that I've covered a lot, and I've interviewed a lot of trans troops over the year who I think, to kind of reiterate exactly what you say, a lot of them enlisted. They wanted to step up, wanted to make a sacrifice for their country. They feel a calling to serve, just like anybody else a lot of the people who are in the military who feel the same way. And I think one of the important things that often gets left out of this reporting is that we actually have data on troop performance when trans folks are in the military. And we found time and again that the presence of trans troops has no impact on troop readiness. So it's not like this is not a problem. This is not an issue. The folks who seem to be serving, as long as you are doing a hard worker, doing stepping up in the military, they all seem to be completely fine with this. This is a non-issue. And I think especially at a time when Americans don't want to enlist in the military, it also just seems to be not a very tactical move to kick out. I think, one of the estimates I saw was like 4,000 people
I saw
out of
4,000.
the military, and people have put so much time and energy and sacrifice into this. I also agree with you. I think that it's really sad and just incredibly demeaning. And also there's an element that's so dehumanizing as well, just by grouping of all of these people together without regard for their particular stories or individuality and the service to the country. So I think, just time and again, I try to reiterate that the presence of trans folks in the military actually has no meaningful impact on troop readiness. So they should get to serve just like everybody else.
I agree. And Keith, before you go, just to add to that, the federal judge who put an injunction on this, Judge Benjamin Settle, is a Bush appointee. And he, after having hearings, he did a nationwide injunction. He said there is no claim and no evidence that the plaintiff in this case was Commander Emily Schilling, who's transgender, that there's no claim or evidence that she now or ever was a detriment to her unit's cohesion or to the military's lethality or readiness, or that she's mentally or physically unable to continue to serve. He said, the judge said, that she'll be discharged solely because she is transgender. And other findings they put in there. If you had an argument of military readiness that was objective and credible, that'd be different. You could have a say, well, okay, maybe in certain positions someone can't be in. That's zero. That's not here at all. It's literally not here. This is just today. It's transgender. There was a Muslim ban in the first term. Like they pick and choose who they're going to demonize that scores the most points with the MAGA base. And now it's transgender. So Keith, what is your take on this?
Well, again, not being one for the military, it's sort of like, well, that's something else I avoided, like giving blood. See, so here's the thing. All of these people that are in these different positions, I will guarantee you, we're going to find out as soon as they eject them, are going to be all of these people that were in these really great, significant places in which they were doing really great work that we need to have done. Like when you got rid of the Muslims, who's going to do your translations? You know what I'm saying? Like we're gonna find that out. We're gonna see what happens now when you take these people out of these positions, and then we're left with, and mind you, these very smart, competent, middle of the road white men who are so threatened by the presence of all of these other people that are different from them that, they're like, to me, it's like if you're afraid to stand next to somebody who has been brave enough to stand up into who their personhood is, if you're afraid to stand next to that person, how brave are you when it comes to shooting somebody across the way? Or how brave are you as a human being in terms of you doing this defense thing when you're so afraid? Because that's all you are. You're just afraid. Like you're not going to turn into it. You're not going to question your sexuality or your gender by standing next to somebody who's very competent in their own. And the only reason why you'll be questioning it is because you have questions yourself. And that's what you're afraid of. So, all of this is based in fear. All of this is based in hatred. But what's so sad is, again, we are letting this happen with all of the information that we know that this shouldn't be going on, because people seem to be, the military seem to be just fine up until now. All of a sudden now there's an issue. And now this issue is going to wind up costing us more security. And I feel like this is part of the whole way of making us feel that much more unsafe in the world. Because now, we're showing the rest of the world that we will take out most qualified people because of the way they look or the way that they choose to carry themselves. And that to me is a big old sign of weakness from the other side, because you don't have that problem in Australia. You don't see that problem with the military in Israel. You don't see they don't got no problems having gays and trans handling the business. So it's only us. It's only us.
Keith, I think you make a great point about the bravery it is to come out and be honest about who you are and say, and that everything comes with being transgender. And in our society
and
today,
being able to hold a gun,
right? But I'm saying
I'm who I am, and I have a
more
gun.
bravery.
Yeah,
and maybe years ago it took bravery, but the demonization, open demonization, now for the last few years, like I interviewed Harper Steele, who I worked with Saturday Night Live, who was a writer and has a whole documentary with Will Ferrell. And I'm like, you became transgender at the worst time ever. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And, she's like, well, this is who I've always been. And now I finally can be that. And she's actually happy. I knew Harper she was not happy.
Yeah, I've shared an office with Harper at the Jon Stewart show.
Oh, you did? So
yeah, when we were on
miserable all the time, but we got along great.
Yeah.
But everyone else didn't get along. So for some reason we get along. Well, we would joke around a lot because I wasn't a fellow writer. I was it worked on production. It was different. And her office was near mine. And it was great. It was nice chatting with Harper.
Can I just say one thing to button this out? Just because I
Please do.
I have two things. One, any group of people and population who has been treated so horribly by their country and still finds good in it and wants to serve it is somebody you want in your military, A. And B, people who have had to navigate the world in a way that is heightened awareness for their own safety, for everything, are also people who are going to give their most, are going to be people who are good soldiers and good troops because they're going to be able to see danger and harm. They're going to be able to make smart assessments about where you're in and strategically how you are. And it sickens me and pains me that those two qualities are just, you do not find those qualities in many Americans. And so to say to the people who bring everything to their country, despite their country delivering them nothing, and to say you're gone is so fucking awful.
That's so well put. It reminds me, I didn't want to paraphrase, I was going to look it up, but Doc Rivers, the NBA coach, who said, Black people love this country. And Keith, maybe you remember what he said. I'm trying to paraphrase it, but it's that kind of thing. We keep loving this country and you don't love us back. And I think it was after George Floyd, but it was very bad. And he was like in tears, and he's an NBA coach, a famous player. So, all right, let's shift gears. To me, it's so upsetting, that story for so many. And it also upsets me that there are certain Democrats, a small number, but some who just strategically say, let's not talk about transgender people. Let's not forget about it. I'm like, well, I can't because I'm Muslim. And if they done that to us, then it was easy to dispose of us in 2017 and 2018 and not stand up for us, then I don't know where our community would be. So I owe it to other communities who stood with us now to stand with the transgender community or any other community that this administration or any other fascist regime is going to target for political gain, because they know they just spin the wheel. Whoever's the easiest target to get the base going, that's the one. Now it's not Muslims because Trump's doing business with the Muslims. His sons are just in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. They're getting billions from Saudi. Literally, he doesn't say anything bad about Muslims. It's transactional. I don't even know what he ever believed, Trump. But now he knows transgender.
Well, now we have to figure out what what transgender people can offer them to shut them the fuck up, because that's
all their
honestly
money, all their
the
crypto,
only thing that's left.
All their cryptocurrency.
Because I mean,
hand it to them.
It's honestly, it's disgusting. It's just disgusting.
It is. And also to that point, even though one last thought that I think kind of relates to what you were also saying, Dean, is about this could be, we could talk about this in relation to any group of marginalized folks in the US. On the face of it, this is a policy about the military and trans people in the military. Really, what this is about is eradicating trans people from existing in society and public spaces. And when I say that we could map this onto any marginalized group of people, we could make this about Muslim folks. We could make this about Black folks. We can make this about queer and trans folks.
Well, I mean, it's happening to Black people now.
Yes, it is. Exactly. Eradicating any group who
is happening to Black people right now. They're trying to erase our history.
Exactly. Like the erasure of, it's about the erasure of all of these groups, these histories, these people, to make it harder for anyone who is not a white Christian man to exist in this country.
And doing it by
what
makes it even more alarming, because it's not just societal. This is done by the color of law, by an executive order upheld now by the Supreme Court, at least temporarily. And that makes it worse, because that means the government has the power to discriminate against any group. It's not society.
Exactly.
That's what, as a lawyer, that's what makes it so much worse from the bigger picture point of view in our Constitution. So, all right, I want to get your reaction.
Because this is setting precedents, right?
It is. It's unbelievable. Well, they had the Muslim ban. Don't forget that. So I want to talk about Joe Biden, not the trash Biden. You can say whatever you want. I'm not bringing this up to say I'm here, because we discussed on the show and some people took it the wrong way. I was talking about his BBC interview, and I played clips that I really liked Joe Biden's interview because he warned about Donald Trump. But some people are like, you should have warned when you were the president. I'm like, he did warn. He had other things I didn't like, but he did warn about but then some people didn't like on The View. So I don't know what's going on. I think it's kind of interesting to see Biden. Well, one thing Biden said, that we had callers call the show nonstop. I played a clip on BBC when Biden was asked, do you think it mattered if you dropped out earlier or not? What if it changed things? And he said, quote, I don't think it would have mattered. We left at a time when we had a good candidate, Vice President Harris, and she was fully funded. He went on to praise her and stuff like that. And he goes, his argument was like, things were in the mix. Like there was things bigger than me or her. And that caused a lot of people to call one way or the other. And then there were some people upset, Democrats, that he brought up on The View that racism and sexism played a role in her losing. Of course it played a role in her losing. I applaud him saying that, because other
That's the
Democrats
old white
trying to
man.
get these white mythical voters who haven't voted for Democrats in the majority since 1964. They're not coming back. James Carville, they're not coming back. We've gotten 42% of white people, 40%. That's what we're getting. We build a coalition around that. So Liz, let me start, because I'm going to you last before. Let me start with you. What do you think about anything about what Biden said? Anything stand out? Is it meaningful? Do you want him to shut up like some Democrats are saying now, like shut up and go away?
There was zero amount of useful information. He just served a plate of Skittles. I don't care. I know what they taste like. The green one's fine. What are you doing? Why are you here? Like, you know what?
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's just like, there's always been, oh, it wouldn't have mattered. The second he stepped down, the same war chest, the same money would have been there because it was his. You know, it is inconceivable to think that him stepping down earlier wouldn't have helped, because the truth is, having a primary would have helped. And maybe Kamala comes in anyway, right? But so that Democratic lefties really hate a coronation. And the Democratic Party gave it to Hillary, and they were like really mad at and even though Bernie moved the needle, but like, look, I was a Bernie person till I had to be a Hillary person. I wanted something else for me personally. So to be able to show that we are the party of process, I think it's important. So you know what, Joe Biden, there's no usefulness for me, Liz Winstead. I will speak for myself to hear from Joe Biden.
No, that's what you should be. I'm not asking you to speak for.
No, but you know what I mean? I'm like, I have nothing. You have nothing to offer me.
Right. Keith's going to speak on behalf of everybody. Keith, Liz just spoke for herself, but you're going to speak on behalf of all people.
No, let me speak for me, because I've been speaking for me for many. Listen, the idea that he's saying anything now is absolutely useless, as Miss Liz has just pointed out, because again, you are ineffectual. You can't help nothing. You can't fix nothing. You can't do nothing for us. Thank you for your time and your service. Thank you for your place in history of being connected to both of the African-American presidents, vice presidents. Like, you were a part of that scene. But in the big picture, you ain't bring nothing new to the table. You're not helping our situation now. It's great that you can sit back and analyze it, but you're also analyzing it from a place of a lot of safety that the rest of the country ain't getting. So thank you, Mr. President. But what you gonna do for? What is that song? What have you done for me lately? That's where I'm going now.
Wow,
you can't do nothing for me now.
So Alex, where do you come down here?
The hubris of it all, to just not be able to sit back and say, I would have done something a little different. I should have stepped down 4 years ago, like I said I was going to do when I originally got the nomination.
Stepped up. Well, he should have stepped up when Obama left. That would have been where the continuity would have been. But instead, he didn't. Wow. And now we're where we are.
No, but wait. So Alex, so what do you? I'm really curious, because I didn't expect
Alex,
all of you to have. It's whatever response you have. It's very interesting.
I just feel like this one sign of a good leader that I'm always hungry for is when you can recognize mistakes that you've made and have some degree of humility. And it's just not there. Like, this man is living in his own echo chamber, where I feel like he was surrounded by aides in his inner circle who allowed him to go forward and be the nominee, and then wait 6 weeks after that horrendous debate to drop out. And I feel like he's in this echo chamber of people who are allowing him to double down on all the decisions he's made, when we all know that it was a mistake.
Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's not at all like I didn't. See, here's what skews differently. When I have the radio, when I'm on live and people are calling in about a subject like this, people who tend to call, it's whoever they, they're self-selecting. And so the ones who call were like, I'm happy to hear from Biden again, or most people. And there are those who didn't want to say things critical of Biden, because I think the vibe was from a lot of listeners, the wave of listeners, like, he's making some good points, or I like that, or whatever. And, on my show, I did all I could to try to help him and then Vice President Harris win everything I could, because I knew how bad Trump was going to be. And it did not mean at all that I was happy with Biden on Gaza. That was the most immoral policy I've seen in my lifetime by a Democratic president. I've seen some by Republican presidents, but it's just brutally values against everything I stand for. Like, if that was the Democratic Party, what the whole party was about, I would not be a Democrat anymore. But in any event, not to get into that, sometimes I was critical of him, but this was interesting how it just played out. Like that you guys are all very, I love it. All right, we get like a minute. We got like a minute left. I'd rather give everyone a chance to plug something before, because we can't start a new topic because everyone's so great. You're going to have great opinions on things. So Alex, let's start with you. Where can people follow your work? Where do you want them to follow your work?
Yeah, just find me. It's Alex Berg on Blue Sky and my website, and you can see all the stuff that I'm working on there.
And Liz, what about you? And by the way, I didn't ask you. We have 1 minute. I'll ask you. With Trump's attacks on abortion, are you waiting for them? Are they beneath the surface? Like, it's got no coverage.
Huge
Like,
things happened this week that we didn't get a chance to talk about. A big fake study came out. Trump administration said they're upholding a Biden administration abortion ruling, but it's really just so that they can judge shop for their own judge. It's a massively huge thing that no one is talking about.
Wow.
And a massive fake study came out with all this BS data that they're going to use. Josh Hawley leading the charge. So big fat bummer theater happening. Maybe we'll come back and talk about it.
Maybe we'll just have you back on to talk about it next week.
Do it, because we should. But anyway, yeah. So you can. But if you listen to my podcast today, it drops. Feminist Buzzkills. We break down this garbage sounds too good to be true Trump thing. And we also break down this crappy ass study that I was just talking about.
Great.
So it's Feminist Buzzkills at Abortion Front, and I'm at Lizz Winstead all over the place.
And Mr. Price?
Yes. Well, you can come follow me because, I'm all about the theater. KeithPriceCurtainCall.com. Come see the latest that, we're in the middle of the award season. So I've got lots of fun stuff going on with the Cheetah Rivera Awards, the Drama Desk Awards, all that stuff. So that's where my mind is. That's how I'm staying sane throughout all of this process and coming out for you to talk about these things and then going back into my theater shell.
My friend got nominated for Best Supporting Actress for a Tony for Tala Ashi from the play English.
From English, yes.
Yeah, and so I know her for a long time. She's been on our show and stuff in the past.
Yay.
So, all right, all three of you were fabulous. I really appreciate it. Have a great week.